Hello and welcome to the Parent Tech Support Show, where I empower parents with the tech knowledge they need to know to protect their kids online. My mission is to demystify parental controls, share practical tips, share important information and guides, and reveal all the tricks kids know so that you can navigate the online world with confidence. I'm your host, Jack Hughes, and because I grew up in this age of digital devices, I have a lot of experience with getting around parental controls and doing stuff I wasn't allowed to. But those days are now over. Today, I use all my experience and inside information to help parents protect their kids online. Now, I really wish I never had to make this episode and this video here, and it's with a heavy heart that I do so, because in this episode, we're diving into one of the most alarming topics, especially for me in my generation, and that is the scary statistics of porn usage among kids and how it negatively affects them. We're going to be uncovering shocking data, discussing its harmful impacts, and at the end I'll share strategies for how you can protect your children from those harmful impacts and pornography. So to begin, we're going to go through all the statistics, and starting with early exposure, which is 42% of children aged 10 to 17 has been exposed to online pornography. And the average age of first exposure is just 11 years old, with some children encountering explicit content as early as 8 years old, which is incredibly young. The 11, which is the average age, is crazy young. And it says 42% of children aged 10 to 17. I don't believe that number. I believe it's higher than that, because I can't think of one person who is 18 and below who has not seen pornography. Not one. I know a lot of kids, more than a typical person would. A lot of kids my age. Pornography is very prevalent among teenagers too. 73% of teens age 13 to 17 watch porn regularly. A 2020 survey found that 62% of teens stumble upon porn accidentally while browsing the internet or using social media. I mean, I'm on the internet more than most people because I'm doing research for videos such as this one, or podcasts such as this one, and I find a lot of links that will clearly lead me to pornography sites. I'm on YouTube half the time, and I see links to hot insert your ethnic person here all the time. Maybe I'm just a 18-year-old boy and the algorithm knows I'm an 18-year-old boy, but I get it pushed on me all the time, and I'm sure it gets pushed on a lot of other teens as well, and a lot of other guys and adults as well. And among boys 14 to 18, over 50% of them view porn weekly, which is quite alarming. And research shows that over 50% of teens believe watching porn is normal behavior, largely due to its ubiquity, because everyone does it, so it must be normal. So, now that we've gotten through all those statistics there, how does pornography affect kids? So, moving on to the effects on the brain. I'm sure you've heard some stuff about dopamine, but pornography triggers the brain's reward system, which releases dopamine. Dopamine is thought of the feel-good chemical. It's quite similar to how drugs like cocaine, methamphetamine affect the brain. Pornography is very similar to those substances, and over time this could lead to desensitization to dopamine. This means that kids would require more and more extreme content to feel the same effects of dopamine, which will lead them into more and more extreme and repulsive, I don't know if you call it repulsive, but more and more scary content. And it's a ladder that people tend to walk up to. It's called the porn ladder. I learned that actually at a therapy office, but put that all aside. Chronic exposure to pornography will rewire the brain, reducing self-control and increasing impulsivity. And this is because dopamine is the feel-good chemical, and your brain will release dopamine whenever you've accomplished something. It is programmed in there because dopamine motivates you. So because pornography releases so much dopamine, it pretty much freezes you and gets you addicted to it. So in layman's term, pornography will make you addicted to pornography. Pornography also leads to a dulled response to pleasure in not just sexual scenarios, but with also other areas of life as well. Things that once brought joy, hobbies, friendships, or family connections will lose their appeal. Again, this is because dopamine, this is because other drugs that pornography release in your brain, because it releases so many of these chemicals, your brain is built a tolerance to these chemicals because your brain always wants a baseline. It's how your brain works. Nothing else will feel quite as good anymore because you've raised the bar so high because of pornography. And due to all the dopamine from porn, it'll make it harder to engage in everyday activities, especially hard activities like getting schoolwork done and whatnot. And again, more because of the chemicals and dopamine. I'm going to keep ripping on dopamine here, but regular consumption of porn is linked to higher rates of depression, anxiety, and loneliness in teens. Studies have also shown that that teens who consume porn are more likely to feel isolated and disconnected from their families and friends. Viewing porn can also have harmful behavior changes. So viewing porn can normalize toxic ideas about relationships and consent, leading to unrealistic expectations. And that's because pornography portrays a totally different scenario to what real sex is like. And so it tends to warp people's perception of that. And it fosters objectification. It treats people as objects, to view people as an object rather than people. So it poisons your brain in the sense where you don't look at someone as a person anymore. You look at them as an object. And no one wants to be seen as an object. We're all people in our own independent way. And a teen regularly exposed to porn is way more likely to start making inappropriate comments. This goes again to what I was just saying earlier about how pornography will warp your brain into becoming more like porn. At the end of the day, your brain is a computer, and whatever you watch or do, you're programming your brain. So if you watch a bunch of porn, you're going to act more like the people in porn or talk like the people in porn. If you watch a bunch of movies, just earlier I've been watching a superhero show, and I was imagining what I would do if I could fly, and I started acting like the main character of that show because I was programming my brain. If I'm hanging around friends who are, let's say they're shoplifting from Walmart, right? I'm hanging around kids who are shoplifting from Walmart. I'm going to start shoplifting from Walmart. It's almost a for sure thing. And kids should not be programming their brains with porn. I would also say that pornography is just morally wrong. Now, I'm a religious person, and I believe in God, and I believe that we are all made in God's image, and pornography is an evil against God's image bearers, which is us as people. Not just the people in porn, but also the viewer of the porn, and against God himself. We treat people like objects. I could make an hour-long video on that subject matter alone. But I don't think you need to be a religious person. I don't think you need to be a Christian or any religion to believe pornography is wrong. I think we all know inherently that porn is wrong. No one is ever proud of porn. No one brags about this video versus that video. When you die, would you want to be remembered as the guy who loved porn? No. No one would ever want to be remembered for their porn usage. I'd say there's a reason why we all hush up porn and why no one talks about it and everyone is embarrassed to talk about it, because it's wrong. I think it's just that simple. Just because it's normal does not make it good. Just because your neighbor Timothy does it does not make it good, right? And what are some strategies you as the parent can use to mitigate these risks to protect your child from porn? I'd say it needs to start at educating them early. Have age-appropriate conversations with your child about pornography and its harms, because it's not a question of when or if they're going to see porn. It's a question of when. So normalize open communication with your kid. Make your kid feel comfortable discussing that sort of subject with you. I don't feel very qualified to give advice on this area because I'm not a parent. I'm just an 18-year-old boy. So make sure you have good communication with your child. That's probably the most important part of this whole thing here. And one thing I am an expert in is parental control. So leverage tools like screen time, OpenDNS, Bark, Family Safe to block explicit content. Implement content filters on the device and on the network level to prevent exposure to porn. So you can block porn sites like Pornhub, Xvideos using screen time. And screen time is quite it's quite confusing to set up. And if you want to make sure you have pornography mostly blocked, and you can get my free guide on my website at parenttech.support. That will give you the basics on how to use parental controls. Once you sign up for my newsletter, you'll get that guide in your inbox, and that would give you how to protect your child using screen time. That'll give you the basics on that subject. And I'd also say to monitor what they're doing. You want to make sure you know what your child is doing on the internet. Don't just trust your filters you have in place. Look at their web history. Look at the websites they're visiting. See if these certain YouTube videos may look sketchy and if they have porn on them. The way I like to think of this, and an analogy I like to give, is a prison, right? You may have the best prison in the entire world. You may have super high walls. You may have certain chambers where the prisoners can only go into. But if you never look at the prison, if you never watch and monitor the prisoners inside the prison, eventually the prisoners are going to escape. Whether they dig a hole underneath the walls or they fly out with their friends, they're going to escape eventually. Which is why it's important that you also monitor what your child is doing on their phone. That's because eventually, if there's a will, there's a way. They're going to figure out a way around the controls. And lastly, this is also another very important aspect, is make sure they have good, healthy habits to replace the bad habits. So the flip side of the coin, you can't just remove all the bad habits and not replace it with something. You have to do something. So make sure you limit their screen time, but give them fun stuff they can do. For me, that was building a motorcycle out of an old bike and an engine I bought off Amazon. So promote healthy activities, going to the gym, drive them to their friend's house, hobbies, family time, whatever it is. Good, healthy, fun activities they can do instead of just being on their phone all the time on screen time. Now, it's also important that you be a good model for your child. Kids will imitate their parents, so it should start with you. So demonstrate healthy media consumption habits yourself, or just lead by example. For example, my dad never swears, and it's because of that I don't swear, or at least I try my hardest not to swear. But if he did swear, I really wouldn't give a rat's behind about swearing. But because my dad was an example to me, I try my best not to swear myself. Doesn't mean I succeed at that. That's something I do struggle with. But I digress. If you found this podcast helpful, check out my podcast, check out my website at parenttech.support and sign up for my newsletter to stay up to date with parental controls and learn all about how to protect your kids online. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe so more parents can have access to this content, and I can help other parents protect their kids online. And if you can share it to them as well, that'd be great. If you have any questions, don't forget to email me at jackhh@parenttech.support. And that's all for this week, folks. Thanks for joining me for this week's episode. I hope that you all have an amazing week. Thank you.